at the table. And so today, as we close out, as we go into the eve and the week of Thanksgiving, I want to come from a book of the Bible and a verse that most of us may have heard before. It's not very a popular preaching one, but it's a good one, found in the book of James. And looking at the first chapter of James and the 17th verse, we'll give you time to get there. It's on the screens if you want to follow. James chapter 1, verse 17. I'm going to be honest, Moyo, I might have went to the King James version on this one. You know, it's NIV, but if you're able to stand, we ask that you do stand. Those that are watching online in the virtual sanctuary, what's up? Welcome. We'd love to see you in person, but we're glad that you're online, and we thank God. James chapter 1, verse 17. The word of the God reads as following: every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. You may be seated. As you take your seat, tag this with a post-it note in your mental capacity: when gratitude counts. When gratitude counts. We are at the table. You're thankful for all that are here today. When gratitude counts. Brothers and sisters, today I want to remind us that gratitude, as we've learned over the last couple of weeks, isn't just a polite response. It's a powerful posture that the believer takes. Gratitude is what separates those who only receive from those who truly rejoice. It's what turns ordinary days into extraordinary worship. Gratitude counts not only because it honors God, but because it shifts our focus and opens our hearts to see goodness everywhere. James chapter 1:17, it tells us that every good and perfect gift is from above. Every blessing you've ever received, every moment of joy, every provision, every breakthrough, it all came from the hand of God. Brothers and sisters, when you stop and count your blessings, you realize that there's more to be grateful for than you could ever imagine. You stop and start doing an inventory of your life when you just look around at all that God has done for you. It's more than you can imagine. So today, as we explore this idea, this subject matter of when gratitude counts, I want you to know that gratitude is not just a feeling, it's an act of faith. It's a declaration that says, God, I may not have everything I want, but I thank you because I have everything I need. Gratitude is how we count the blessings we see and trust God for the ones we don't see yet. Today, if you allow me to walk with you in this spiritual giant of a text, I want to just talk about some character traits we have when we really understand when gratitude counts. Blakely, the first thing that we see when we talk about gratitude is that we acknowledge the source of every blessing. In order for this to count, in order for your gratitude to mean something, in order for you to move from just a polite response to a posture as a believer, you've got to acknowledge the source of every blessing. Every good and perfect gift is from above. This truly is the first step in counting your blessing, is to acknowledge the source. For we know that every good thing in your life didn't just happen by accident, and it wasn't achieved by your strength alone. James reminds us that every good and perfect thing is from above. It's right here, the gut check. Because I'm sure there are some of us that believe that because of the school you went to, the degree you got, the paper on your wall, that job that you got, that's why you got what you have. But the truth of the matter is, with a reality check in, if it had not been for the Lord who was on your side, where would you be? I like this because this text tells us that every gift, every good thing, everything you want, everything that you see that is good and perfect gift is from above. That lets me understand that God is the giver of every good thing. Every blessing, whether material, spiritual, or emotional, flows from God's hand. He is the creator and sustainer of life. He doesn't just give us gifts, he gives us himself along with the gift. You don't believe me? Psalms 24:1, the earth is the Lord and everything in it. And it should cause us to stop and reflect on where your blessings really come from. Your job, your home, your health, your family, your talents, all of it is from God. You realize this gratitude becomes your natural response. When you wake up in the morning and that little peanut butter and jelly that you get to have, you say thank you. That's why it's important. I tell my kids, y'all better learn how to say grace. Because there's some things that mama and daddy's paycheck didn't get. You better be grateful for that little hamburger that you have. If you can't say nothing, can't say thank you, at least say ta-ta. It's something about the natural response when you realize that all that I have, God has given it to me. God's gifts are good and perfect. Not only is God the source of our blessing, but his gifts are inherently good and perfect. The word perfect in James 1:17 implies completeness. God's blessings are exactly what we need, even if we don't understand them at the moment. He said it's perfect. It completes us, Jackie. It's everything that we need. It's the fullness of who he is in our life. When we understand this, when we understand that God's gifts are good and perfect, we're able to trust in the goodness of God's gift, even when they come in an unexpected package. I look at it funny. There are some goodness that come. That there is goodness. There is some gifts that God gives us that comes when the closed door, that delay, that challenge. It may be a perfect gift preparing for you for something greater. Sometimes we've got to look at the whole thing and understand that it may not come as I wanted, but it's what I needed. God's gifts are perfect. But we're also able to look at this and acknowledge the source of the gift and get excited because it says that he does not change like shifting shadows, meaning that God is unchanging in his nature. That's what the text said. His character and his blessings are consistent. Unlike human relationships or earthly circumstances, God's generosity and goodness are constant. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. I like this because I was reading the book, and C.S. Lewis writes in his book, and he talks about how do you understand God's consistency. He says, and then our ability to adapt to him. He says you got the picture of the sun in the sky. It doesn't move, but the earth turns. What that says is that when the earth turns, the shadows shift. God is like the sun, constant, unchanging, and dependable. Changing. It is us around him that is changing. And if we move around the consistent God, then we see that our shadows shift. We see that things change. When shadows fall in our life, it's not because God moved, but it's because we turned away. He does this because he makes us to understand that you have to know that God is consistent in who he is. His nature never changes. Because of this is why the declaration can be made that you've got to anchor your faith in God's unchanging nature. Even when circumstances shift, his blessing remains steady and his love remains unfailing. When you acknowledge the source of your blessing, your perspective shifts. Instead of taking credit or focusing on what you lack, you begin to see God's fingerprints on every area of your life. Recognizing that every good and perfect gift from above turns your heart towards gratitude and your focus towards worship, because you begin to recognize that I've got to let God know thank you. I like this because in our lives we have come so consumed on the materials that we forget about the miracles. Oh, shucks up in here. Preach, Charles, to yourself. There's some miracles that happen every day in your life. Sister Carter, it was a miracle that you woke up this morning. It was a miracle that you made it in your right mind. It's a miracle because the truth of the matter is all of the composition of stuff that we've been dealing with as a people, all of us should have lost our mind. But isn't it good to know that when I think about his goodness and all that he's done for me, the light bill don't really mean nothing then. But when I think about his goodness, I know I got a diagnosis from the doctor. When I think about his goodness, it makes the news not look so gloomy. When I think about his goodness, I can say what the songwriter said, if he did it before, he can do it again. That his goodness and the thought of it shifts our perspective. He says you've got to acknowledge the source of every blessing. Point number 2, so Brittany can write it down, is that you've got to appreciate the significance of every blessing. You got to appreciate it. Now, it's one thing to acknowledge it, but how many times do we forget to appreciate how significant the blessing that God gives us are? Once we recognize that God is the source of every good and perfect gift, the natural response is to appreciate the significance of those blessings. Gratitude shifts our perspective. It helps us focus not on what's missing, but on what we already have. When we pause to truly value the blessings in our lives, it deepens our worship and strengthens our faith. I like gratitude because gratitude has the ability to combat forgetfulness. Y'all see David in Psalms 103:2 says, praise the Lord, my soul, and forget not all of his benefit. Why did David write this? Because as humans, we are prone to forget the good when things go wrong. Forgetfulness leads to entitlement, bitterness, dissatisfaction. Brother Luke said it, Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed, and were the other 9 only one leper returned to give thanks? He tells this story of a bunch of cousins that he had, showing how easily people overlook God's blessing. Y'all know the story. He healed them, but only 9, they were gone. One came back to say thank you. Could be mad at them in that story because how many of us are getting a blessing every single day of our lives, and it's a corporate blessing. Y'all know there are some things that you are just getting because you show up to Antioch. I'm not trying to brag. I'm not trying to boast, but I'm glad to know that I serve a church and I'm a part of a church where the blessings of God flow every day. There's some things that you get that corporately God has proclaimed and declared in this house, and how many of us forget to show up the next week? I got a problem with folks that take God off their agenda. Because when you were begging God to get you a better job, when you were walking in faith, when you were trusting God, it was easy for you to get an amen and show up. You were snotting and crying, came down here, I done used my oil, I done ran out. You had the church mothers praying for you. They was on their knees knowing they got gout, but they did it anyway. All of this we done been through. Now you done got you a little piece of something, and we ain't seen you no more. You only want to show up when things are happening and there's some food. I'm sorry, I'm just venting a little bit. But it helps me and it hurts me to know that folks are able to abandon not the church, but God himself. Shame on us. That's why I like gratitude, because when your heart is filled with gratitude, you wake up on Sunday morning saying, I'm tired, past tired. I don't even want to wake up, but I know that if God allowed me to think about waking up, I still got to press my way through. There's some of us that say, if I ain't got nothing else to do, and before I even got some toothpaste to brush my funky breath, I'm saying, thank you, God, for the little. Y'all better talk back to me. It's something about being in position just to say thank you one more time. Leads to these things. That's why, my brothers and sisters, we got to start each day with gratitude. I want you to do an assignment next week. Got homework, y'all. I want you to write down the blessings you tend to overlook. I'll start the list with you. Waking up, food to eat, the ability to gather with your loved one. Write them down. Because in order to us to really understand gratitude, we've got to remember that these small things change our perspective. Gratitude combats forgetfulness, but gratitude acknowledges God's faithfulness. When we appreciate our blessings, we recognize God's faithfulness in our lives. Gratitude is not just about saying thank you. It's about acknowledging God's consistent hand in our past, present, and future. Look back over your life and recall the times God provided, protected, and guided you. Let those memories fuel your gratitude for his faithfulness today. Check back with God and say, I remember when. And I'm looking forward to now. I saw how you did it there. Just do an inventory. You ain't got to do it. That's why one of my favorite hymns is count your many blessings. Name them one by one. Count your many blessings and see what the Lord. I know a black brother wrote that because he knew that sometimes with us folks, you got to see it on paper. I dare you just in the last week, write all that God, I promise you, by mid-sentence, you're going to start getting the, ooh, I felt good about that, because you start thinking about last year when you were in this position and how God said he was going to cover you, and now God is prospering. Last year when you were trying to figure out how I was going to make it, but I'm trusting you, God. Now I'm leaning on you, God, and now I'm endeavoring in you, God. Is there anybody in here that can just pause for station identification and say, I got a reason to give God some praise, because you ain't seen all that I've been through, but I'm glad that God has allowed me to exhibit. He says gratitude. It does this. Fuels our gratitude is faithfulness. It shows that he's been there every step of the way. When we look at this, then we not only acknowledge the source, but when we look at this and appreciate the significance of it, then we understand that gratitude transforms perspective. When you appreciate the significance of your blessing, it changes how you see life. Gratitude replaces complaints with contentment and bitterness with joy. Paul tells us in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, give thanks in all circumstances. Why? Because even in difficulties, blessings are present if we have the eyes to see them. Choose to focus on the positives and let it stay. Train your heart to look for the hidden blessings even in struggles. Gratitude is a discipline, not just a feeling. It's an intentional act, not just something that happened. My brothers and sisters, Antioch, when we pause to appreciate the significance of every blessing, our heart fills with gratitude and our perspective shifts. You begin to see that God's hand has been guiding and providing you for way longer than you could ever imagine. Gratitude allows you to say, it is well with my soul. No matter what life's bring, it is well with my soul. No matter what I'm facing, it is well with my soul. No matter what they may say in Washington, D.C., it is well with my soul. No matter what the haters are telling you, it is well in my soul. No matter what the doctor says, it is well in my soul. I don't care what the teacher told you at parent-teacher conference. You hold your baby close and say, it is well with my soul. I don't care what the doubter said about what's about to happen at Antioch. It is well with my soul. I wish I had some. It is well with my soul kind of praise. And sometimes we be too loud and too quiet, but I wonder if I got somebody in the middle that can say, it is well with my soul. I dare you to get bold and bad and bougie and look at your situation. It is well with my soul. I'm writing folks in text messages when they give me some messages, write them, it is well with my soul. You can get mad, ladies. Jay gonna be mad. She gonna be yelling at me. All right, baby, I'll do the dishes because it is well with my soul. Y'all laughing, but there's a boss you need to see on Monday, and you just go up to him and say, hey, boss, it is well with my soul. There's a bill collector that's going to call. It is well with my soul. Why? Because when I think about my soul, I know that God kept me when I needed to be. It is well with my soul. Let me get through this, y'all making me excited. I like this because it tells us that when gratitude counts, we acknowledge the source of every blessing. We appreciate the significance of every blessing. The last thing that I see in this text is that we affirm the sufficiency of every blessing. We recognize God as the source of our blessings, and we appreciate the significance of those blessings. We must affirm the sufficiency. This is the acknowledgement that what God gives us is not just good, but it is enough. We affirm the sufficiency of God's blessing. We declare our trust in his perfect provision and time. And we understand that God knows what we need. Blessings we receive may not always align with our wants, but they are always aligned with our needs. God, in his infinite wisdom, gives us exactly what we require to fulfill his purpose in our lives. And that's why I like my favorite verse. If I could still take the pain of a tattoo, I'll get it again. And my God will meet all my needs according to his riches of his glory. And my God, I like King James Version, shall supply all of my needs. In the same way, God supplies our needs in perfect measure, even when we don't fully understand his provision. That's how we've got to handle this thing. Trust that God's blessing, even if they seem small or insufficient, are perfectly tailored for your life. You got to know that if God gave it to you, it was enough. Stop comparing your blessings to others and thank God for giving you what you need. He knew you couldn't handle a Mercedes because, baby, you don't like to get your oil changed. Look at your neighbor and say, drive what you got. Trust in God. He gave you what you need. As hard as it. Pastor Newman, I don't know. But it's like I know God is blessing me, but it feels like I'm just on level 1 and everybody else on level 2. I can't stand people sometimes, y'all. I'm in the people business. Just look, Lord Jesus, you can't have that. I struggle with this, y'all, because I'm like, well, you can't handle that. Ain't no need of you trying to compare yourself to that person. You don't even look good in that color. Why you want that? Don't be mad because they got that. They not. You can't do that. Ain't no need of me coming up in here trying to compare myself to Mother Raglan and Jana. Talk about, oh, Mother Raglan got best with a Cadillac. Jana can't drive no Cadillac yet. Her kids is just Newmans. They're going to mess up the leather seats. She got 115 kids like the Wayans. What she need a two-seater? Like, we get caught up in the wrong stuff. Jana Newman, the pastor of whatever my name is a Honda Pilot type of woman because she got too many kids and the oil change is what her husband can afford. Let me help you out. Stop comparing yourself, because can I tell you something? Jana Newman wake up every morning to go to a job, to go buy groceries, to go take her kids where they got to go in a Honda Pilot Black Edition, looking good in her way. Don't try to be like what everybody else is. You may not be Janet, but you drive your Chevy Malibu. Do what you got to do. We always compare. What I love about this text that says you ain't got to do that, because what God gave you was everything that you need. Listen, I learned in my life that the hardest times in my life is when I latched on to somebody else's blessing and thought it was for me. Hey, look, you ain't got to preach. I'll preach to myself. Listen. You want to know what turmoil is when you trying to hold on to something that wasn't for you, wasn't designed for you, wasn't given to you, but you got it by accident because you just happened to be there. But I'm standing in line telling God, God, what is for me is for me. I don't want nobody else's stuff. If it ain't mine, I'll wait. He says that they are perfect. He gives you what you need. You got to stop comparison, but God's gifts are perfectly timed. Not only do God knows what we need, but he also knows when we need it. His blessings often arrive at the right moment, even if they seem delayed in our eyes. I like 2 Peter 3:9. Peter said, the Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness, and said he is patient with you. Let me read that back for the people in the back. The Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. Instead, he is patient with you. I'm learning this, that you know, when you have 5 kids, you learn that every child is really different. Same parents, same house, same school, and you just look at them like, you ain't got that yet. What's wrong with you? Boy, your brother got it when he was 3. Now, the best thing about it is, in 5 children, I've seen potty training happen 5 different times. It's amazing. We went through the, Lorenzo, he did it eventually, but he was spoiled. His mama, was feeding him until he was 7 years old. The boy just learned how to cut his steak up last week. He 115. But CJ came out running, and CJ, I believe, Jenna, mark me if I'm wrong, I don't know who potty trained him. One day he just went to the potty. My little Matilda, he just went there. Carson needed a little extra love. He had that Lorenzo. Jana went back into baby fever. We remember we were pull up and we were doing all of that. We were trying. We were working hard. And then there was Dalen. I was praying, y'all, because my baby couldn't be in the 1st grade. Not Dalen. It wasn't that he couldn't. He knew what to do. He just refused to do it. Dalen was bougie. I don't want to wear pull-ups, but you don't want to go up and get to the bathroom. We got to do something, because if I buy one more mattress up in this house, I was confused what's not working. We did it for everybody else to say, but Dalen. And I learned that it wasn't what we were doing, but it was how we were doing it. It wasn't that we were looking at the time of slowness, but we didn't have the patience. Dalen is a delicate person. You can't yell at Dalen. You can't just come at Dalen real strong. Dalen reminds me of another person that I've known all my life. No, y'all stay out of my house. Stay out of my business. Whoever said you can't just, Dalen's probably should have been named Charles. We're going to do what you say do, but you can't yell. You got to do it on our time. And once we start learning that, Dalen, let's get you on a schedule, Dalen figured it out. And then came Jace, and I just quit parenting then. I don't know what happened. Jace is The boy don't wear pull-ups, he don't wear underwear, he don't wear nothing. And wherever he gonna go. He potty trained. He just ain't potty trained in the toilet yet. So watch your cars. There might be puddles out there, y'all. But he gonna go. He ain't gonna use it on himself. I'm learning. We learning. But I've learned what I'm trying to say is that we learn that in this process, God works with us the same way. Could you imagine if God put you on a time schedule and did not adapt you receiving his blessing based on the patience that he had to give you? I just pastor you. I didn't create you. And I know it take me a long time with some of y'all, but soon and very soon, y'all gonna join the rest of us. But God does that. He's patient. He says you got to imagine that his death is there, but he's able to do it. God's blessings operate on divine timetable, not ours, causing, ensuring that they arrive in the perfect moment, the perfect time. This lets us know that you got to practice patience and trust God's timing. You acknowledge that they're sufficient. You know that there is a delay. It's there. God's provision is always sufficient. The sufficiency of God's blessing is rooted in his character as Jehovah Jireh, our provider. Even when we face trials, his grace sustains us. Instead of focusing on what you lack, lean into the sufficiencies of God's blessing. Declare, God, you are enough. What you have given me is enough. When we affirm the sufficiency of every blessing, we're not just acknowledging that what God has done, but we are expressing faith in what he will continue to do. Learn that when gratitude counts, it's a declaration that our commitment and our contentment is not found in possessions, but in the provider. I'm ready to take this thing home. Because Antioch, let me tell you something. Sometimes in life, we look at what we don't have and forget the sufficiency of what we do have. But can I stop by the church I love and remind you today that what God gives is always enough. Meet me at the table, y'all, as I close this thing. And let you know you may not have everything you want, but you got everything you need. Because the Lord is your shepherd, and you shall not want. Jen, I feel my help coming. When you were hungry, he put food on your table. When you were sick, he was a doctor in the sick room. When you were lost, he became your God. And when you were sinking deep in sin, his grace and love lifted you up. Can somebody look at your neighbor and let your neighbor know that it is enough that God gives me? Is it all right if I go to the Bible? I feel good. That's my note. And call me some witnesses up in here today. Y'all remember the widow that said that she didn't have enough. She said, I got a little oil and a little flour, and I'm about to eat my last meal and die. But the prophet said, give it to God first. And when she obeyed, the oil didn't run out and the flour didn't go dry. Why? Because God's blessing is sufficient. Look at your neighbor and say, he's more than enough. Can I tell y'all about Uncle Paul? Paul said, I had a thorn in my flesh and I asked the Lord to take it away 3 times. But God didn't remove the storm. Instead, he said, my grace is sufficient for you. That means that even when the storm is still there, his grace will carry you through. Is there anybody here that knows when life feels like it's not enough? God is able to step in and prove that he is enough. If he clothed the lilies of the field and fed the sparrows in the sky, won't he take care of you? If he opened up the Red Sea for Moses, won't he make a way for you? If he brought Jesus up out the grave, won't he lift you up out of your situation? Look at your neighbor. I feel good. Look at your neighbor. Can y'all stand up and make me feel better? And grab your neighbor by the hand. Look your neighbor in the eye and say, neighbor, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what you're dealing with, but what I do know is God is enough. I don't know about you, but I thank God today. I thank him for a sufficient blessing. I thank him for his grace. I thank him for his mercy, and I thank him for his love. Is there anybody here who can lift your hands and declare, God, you're more than enough. When the bills are high and the money is low, remind yourself, God is enough. When the tears fall and the nights are long, remind yourself, God is enough. When the storms are raging and the winds are blowing, remind yourself, God is enough. Give him praise because he's Jehovah Jireh. Give him glory because he's El Shaddai. And give him honor because he's Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Let the Redeemer of the Lord say so. He is enough. Is there anybody here that can count your blessings, that can look at your life, that can realize that if it had not been for the Lord that was on your side, you wouldn't be here today? Oh, shucks up in here. Let me say it this way. Is there anybody that's on Team Jesus that ain't afraid to be a cheerleader, that ain't afraid to stand up and wave your hands in the air and say, God, you made a way when there was no way. God, you turned darkness into day. God, you've been good. You woke me up, but not only did you woke me up, you picked me up, turned me around, placed my feet on solid ground. If you know him to be enough, say, I know God is enough. Look at somebody, tell somebody, help somebody know that he is enough. How do I know he's enough? Every day, every day with God proves to be better than the day before. When I look back over my life and see where he brought me from, he brought me from a mighty long way. He brought me from darkness to day. He's been so good. He's been real good. He's been like Campbell's soup. Good. He's like Madonna's. I'm loving it. If loving you is wrong, God, I don't want to be right, because ain't nothing gonna separate me from the law. Shucks up in here. Do you love him? If you love him, say yes. If you love him, say yes. If you love him, say yes. Yeah. I'm going to talk to this side of the church, because I need to know what the folks that can say, I should have been dead, I should have been lost, but the Lord stepped in. Is there anybody that know without a shadow of a doubt, I'm still standing only because of God's grace. I'm still standing only because of God's mercy. His grace is more than enough. He is more than enough. He's more than enough. I'm learning, I don't know what takes you to move, but that ought to help somebody know that he's more than enough. If you ain't standing because of your burdens, then I declare he's more than enough. When gratitude counts, this is what we understand. God is more than enough. As we go into this season, we begin to thank God. Gratitude counts. We acknowledge the source of our blessings. We acknowledge the significance of our blessing. Then we acknowledge the sufficiency of our. Isn't it good to know